So it's a real pleasure to be here. I've been tasked with this title. I think what I'm mostly going to concentrate on is telling you about some innovations that are based around technology. I'm not going to touch so much on all the issues around integration into NHS and so on, but that has been very interesting to hear some of that that we all know, of course, today. The other thing I wanted to say is I've added actually just under my name. I don't normally do that, but it's kind of probably relevant for this audience today. I've also taken on a new role at Oxford around promoting women and diversity in entrepreneurship. Now, I was 20 years at Imperial College, and I had a really great time there, and I still hold a strategic professorship there. But I moved to Oxford in April this year. I moved my whole team, about 90 people, all came with me. And I moved for a couple of reasons. So the first one was that I really wanted to also be embedded within medicine. And now my primary appointment is in medicine, because I want to be very translational. And they also gave us a very nice new building where it didn't rain inside. So that was wonderful. So this is a team you can see on the top right there from 27 different countries, but also many different backgrounds. So we have surgeons, we have engineers, chemists, cell biologists, and so on. And we go from fundamental science. Obviously, we're an academic group. We publish a lot of academic papers. But really thinking about how do we get things through into application and really try and help with big healthcare challenges in society. So I've set up quite a number of companies as main founder. We've also got 20 or so companies set up by PhD students from the group, including Hinge Health, that's now worth about $6 billion US dollars. And then also been founding advisor for many companies as well. And the sort of work that we cover ranges from diagnostics, which I was super happy to hear people flying the flag for today, because I think it's very, very underrated as an area, and it's extremely important in terms of healthcare impact. And we also work in therapeutics. So I thought what I'd do today is just touch on a few kind of topics, some of which will already be in companies, and some of which are more sort of research exploratory phase, but give you a kind of idea of some of the kind of future. So the first thing to say is one of the areas we work in is regenerative medicine, and particularly in the context of how we might use biomaterials in regenerative medicine. And this is relevant for pretty much every organ system that you can think of in the body. And what we realized is it's very, very difficult to make those biomaterials innovations and actually get them through to patients. And so we set up with funding from primarily the MRC, but also EPSRC and BBSRC, this UK regenerative medicine program, Smart Materials Hub. And this brought together the really big players within the regenerative medicine biomaterials community across the UK, and I've been serving as a director for this. And what we do there is we develop lots of different biomaterial systems, so it might be injectable hydrogels, for example, to put into the knee, or we're also developing artificial ligaments, new types of materials to regenerate the retina, materials to help with liver fibrosis, many, many different materials innovations. But what we did with this hub was rather different to what normally happens in an academic center. So you can see we still publish all the papers, as you would do. But we also set up our own QMS system. And we set up regulatory panels and safety and immunology and panels that could help us with scale-up and manufacturing. And this has been really successful in terms of us being able to launch many companies from the science in this hub, as well as plan for 3 clinical trials. Another area that we work on is new types of nanomedicines for drug delivery. And these might be in the form of lipid nanoparticles, for example, or polymer-based particles, what we call polyplexes to deliver nucleic acid cargo, as well as some cell-derived particles called exosomes. And again, this has been a really interesting area in terms of how we can think about those innovations and take them forward towards clinic. And so one of the companies I've been very involved in, which is called Nanovation Therapeutics, actually the main base is from Canada, but we also have set up labs in Oxford. has been focusing around the design of lipid nanoparticle systems. And actually, Peter Cullis, we have 6 academics within this, and Peter Cullis, that you can see as the chair there, was actually the inventor of the lipid formulations that were used within the BioNTech vaccines. And this has been a really interesting company to be involved with, and has been now very successful. And just 3 weeks ago, we signed a deal with Novo Nordisk for $600 million to take forward a number of different targets through preclinical to clinical testing. Now, alongside this, and going back to this slide here, where we're working with these different nanoparticle systems, one of the very big frustrations that I had was, and I think the whole field has it really, is that there just were not techniques available that could help you to understand what was happening at the single particle level across a very complex mixture of your particles. And so I tasked my team a few years ago with the challenge of developing the technique that would be the first in the world that would help us to understand that single particle chemistry, but across a very complex mixture of particles. And this led to this founding of this company called Sparta Biodiscovery, which stands for Single Particle Automated Raman Traffic Analysis. The particles don't fly, by the way, but we can measure them in our machine that we invented. We trap them with an optical trap and measure their chemistry with a technique called Raman spectroscopy. And that enables us to determine particle composition, any heterogeneity, how much drug is loaded, and lots of other things that would be interested in for these very complex mixtures. We can also understand, for example, how proteins bind on the surface and how that might affect biodistribution. But the key thing is this really is combining all this single particle information, but for thousands of particles. So you can start to pull out formulation, optimization details that you never previously would have been able to. This is what the machine looks like. This is now CE mark approved across Europe. We set up the company maybe 2.5 years ago and just got the CE mark approval earlier this year. It's now used by over 30 pharma companies and many academic groups as well. And I hope will be really transformative for drug delivery optimization. Now, I also want to show this slide here. This is not work from our group. This is a formulation made from polymers. It's called Lupron Depot. Of course, all the clinicians will know this. This was launched back many years ago. And in this published paper, also not from our group, what you can see is that the formulation on the right with the 1 microsphere looks pretty nice as a sphere. But then if you zoom out and look on the left, it's actually very, very dispersed formulation. And this is how many polymer formulations are. So this is how traditional manufacturing will generate polymer formulations for you. And so you get a very wide distribution. Now, what we're doing is making particles that look kind of similar. This is not on the market or anything. This is still research stage. And we're making them with new kinds of bioinks that we can print with very, very high resolution. So all of a sudden, you have these spherical type particles, but you have exquisite control over their design. And the kind of things we've been doing is creating them with multi-chambers. This is funded by the Gates Foundation, so that we can make things like pulsatile vaccines. So the idea is you would do an injection, and you can have many, many compartments within these. And then the formulation itself would self-boost, so you wouldn't need to have patients going back to the clinic. And you can even print the system that will fill the particles. So the particles here are in orange, and the printing system is in blue. And what you'll see is in this image here, which I find really cute, you will see these particles individually filling up. And so you have exquisite control over the amount of cargo you might want to load as well. So I'm going to go rather quickly because there's a few different things I want to touch on. I hope you'll forgive me for using the term AI because that's very crude, because we all know that AI means many different things. And for the purpose of this presentation, I'm just going to refer to AI as a globally encompassing term. So first thing to note is AI, of course, has already revolutionized healthcare. And these are some of the areas that have been touched on at various points today, but whether it be from advanced imaging approaches, which we have shown, not my group, but the field has shown now in many, many instances can be absolutely transformative in accuracy of diagnostic imaging, to understanding complex data sets, for example, from proteomic studies and many others, to helping the field within drug discovery and development. This is really a hugely burgeoning area. And what you can see here is I've just picked out some of the companies that are working in these kind of fields that I've listed at the top left there. But there's also other things as well. So for example, Johnson & Johnson is using AI to look at operating room efficiency and physician learning, also to improve surgical procedures by creating 3D maps, for example, of the heart. So you can look at navigation during cardiac ablation, catheter procedures, and so on. And then we have also companies looking at digital twins, as well as, of course, looking at using AI to screen for new therapeutics. So extremely active area. We've already heard touching on about the Nobel Prize today. This is really, really important, I think, in recognizing the huge work that's been done by Demis and John around AlphaFold, and of course all the new work they're doing now as well, but also by my good friend David Baker around developing now new technologies to help us to not only understand how proteins fold, but actually be able to make entirely new kinds of proteins that could act as therapies. We created a company in this area as well. We didn't get the Nobel Prize, not even close. But this was just created about a year and a bit ago. This is kind of interesting, though, because this is with a co-founder, a friend of mine from Imperial, Stefano, who's a computational drug discovery expert. And the idea there is we're making new kind of binders that can have super selectivity through multivalent binding abilities. And this is very interesting. And actually, one thing I would say about this company is it went through a US accelerator program, as you can see there, called Y Combinator, that some of you will know about. And they're actually getting a huge amount of, I wouldn't say pressure, but sort of positive pull now from the US to relocate there. And that's maybe something we can touch on, because this is something we see quite a lot. And so just a few words about wearables. So wearables, you know, are also an extremely growing field. I don't work directly in this area myself, but we're all familiar with them, and they can measure many different things. And you'll be very familiar with some of the sort of commercial ones. Many of these actually are not actually approved as medical devices, and they tend to be of course, helping us with monitoring things like glucose and heart rate and walking around and all those kind of other things. But it's definitely the case that wearables are going to keep improving and changing. And in terms of future directions, so I just put a few things here. So the first one is that the integration with AI and big data, you know, is definitely going to keep moving forwards. The other thing, as someone that works a lot on biosensing, is that really the capability of these kind of wearables to be used for advanced biosensing is still very much in its infancy, and that's something that is going to keep developing, and there's going to be quite a few regulatory challenges around that. These are a couple of the very recent sort of academic papers that have come out, if you like, in the field that are looking at some more complex targets. And so, for example, in the paper on the left there, recently out in Nature Biotechnology, you can see that this wearable here is using an ultrasound system to actually monitor deeper tissues in subjects that are moving around. And so what you can start to do there is actually monitor things like cardiac output. And then on the right, this is an in-ear integrated sensor array, which is looking at monitoring of brain activity and also lactate in sweat. And so that's a combination of electrophysiological and electrochemical sensors within these systems. Okay, so just a few words to finish off around genomics. One interesting thing is really how the field of genomics is now converging with bioengineering. So we see here a few of the recent Nobel Prizes, which include various applications in genomics and nucleic acid technology, but also this sort of CRISPR-based gene editing approaches from Jennifer Doudna and Emmanuel Charpentier. And more and more we're seeing companies implementing different advances from genomics and combinations with bioinformatics as well to advance healthcare. And so if you look, for example, GSK alongside with MSD as well, really interesting things going on in genomics for immunotherapies and personalized medicine. And there are many other companies in this area too, including use of these types of technologies for advanced diagnostics. So the company at the bottom there, Signature Biosciences, is one that we founded a few years ago that actually has developed a way to look at gene signatures 10 times faster and 10 times cheaper than PCR. So I think that's going to be very, very interesting for complex multi-signature disease profiling. And their first targets now are in breast cancer. We also developed this technology here called CRISPRzyme that was published and patented and licensed into a different company, which is a very sensitive point-of-care technology that uses CRISPR-based diagnostics combined with a nanoparticle amplification process. And this was interesting in that we could take this to the emergency room and could actually distinguish between patients that were having a heart attack and those that were just suffering from non-heart-related symptoms. And this was able to be done cheaply and fast. And this kind of technology here you can see compared to other sensing technologies doesn't need complicated equipment and also has cheap consumables. And so our thought here is this might be the sort of technology eventually we could get people using on ambulances and things like that, really in a more point-of-care format. One little side note I will say is that I actually did not go into science at all because I wanted to get rich. I really went into science because I wanted to make a difference. And what I would really, really like is for a lot of our biosensing that is very sensitive, very specific, very affordable, I would like to make that available at cost in global south situations. And that's actually very difficult to do. And so if somebody wants to help me do that, I'd be very happy to hear your advice. We're slowly making progress towards that, for example, by linking up with agencies like Wellcome Trust that's funding a big cholera program for us, and we have some programs also in malaria, but it's very, very difficult to get technology out at cost for Global South, and that makes me very sad. So if anybody wants to help with that, I would love your help. And then just finally, if you're interested in this area of mHealth, this is one of our recent Nature papers on the topic, thinking about how we can get sensing more delocalized at the point of care by coupling it to readers on mobile phones. And I'll just show you a video from a center that I was deputy director of for its 10-year lifespan. This is a center called iSense. And what iSense did was develop diagnostic technologies and look at their implementation into online care pathways. And what you can see here are some readers developed by UCL. This was all published in Nature Medicine, where we're reading HIV tests in the field, putting the information into these data dashboards created by a collaborator within iSense, and then those patients are able to be tracked and get into quicker online care. And that is the sort of thing that we would really like to see expanded. And then finally, future of healthcare is integrated and multi-omics. So more and more we're thinking about not just genomic data, but also metabolomic and microbiomics and proteomics, and how do you get all of this stuff together and follow patients over time. And certainly, again, AI is going to be very useful for this in terms of paving the way for earlier disease detection, tailored treatments, enhanced preventive care, and also just generally transforming our approach to health. We also have a company in this area which has actually been funded by the Bioinnovation Institute in Copenhagen. It's being incubated there at the moment. It's not spun out yet, but it will spin out after Christmas. And this follows that sort of multi-omic approach combined with AI for looking at longitudinal monitoring of different disease outcomes with a primary first application in multiple sclerosis. And this is a kind of very interesting area too. And then last slide, AJ, so I'll finish on time, is just a shout out to what we're going to be doing next. Now that our iSense Center has finished its 10-year term, we were very grateful to just be awarded this quantum research hub that will start in December this year. And this is actually the first hub, believe it or not. There's been a big investment in quantum in the UK, but this is the first hub actually that brings quantum to biomedical research within a hub. So this is the first biomedical sensing-related research hub, bringing together many, many different partners. And this is going to keep us busy for a good period yet. So thank you.
The Harley Street Health District, the home of healthcare since 1860.